All right, we're back at our shooting gallery game, and I'm about to make an interesting change here. And the reason why I'm rethinking this, having one object for score and one for controller, I think it's probably better that we have one object for score and lives. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make some changes. First of all, we're going to move the drawing of the score over to the object controller, and then we're going to try to draw a bullet for every life that we have. Now I say the word life, we're going to use GameMaker's lives. There's a lot of actions that use lives, but in our case, lives are technically going to be bullets because it's a shooting gallery, and so we only have so many bullets. So this tutorial and the next one will be covering the game mechanic where we have 8 bullets. Every time we shoot, we lose a bullet. Eventually, we're going to have these targets come by that will give us more ammo. And if we can hit those, we'll get those ammo. But if we run out of bullets, the game will be over. But this first tutorial, we're gonna move the idea of scoring to object controller, and then we're gonna move lives or bullets also onto the object controller and deal with it. Okay. Now, because we're gonna do that, I'm about to make some changes that could go awry, that could go wrong. And so sometimes when I use a Git project and I'm about to try something that could get ugly, I will create a separate branch for it. And then if I'm successful, I'll merge those changes back into the regular branch. And if I'm not successful, I might just delete it and start over with where I was at the beginning. I don't think we'll have to do that, but I did want to model that for you. So the first thing we're going to do is open up the project for this class, and I'm going to open it in with git bash. I also need to get the status, so I'm going to type git status, see what's going on. We're on branch development, nothing to commit. Let's see if there's any changes from the online repo. So I'm going to do a git pull origin development. So this is going to pull in if there's anything new on the online repo, and let's see if there is. All right, already up to date. Okay, so that's really good. So everything's fine here. We're on the development branch. I've got GameMaker open, and now what I'm going to do is try out a new thing. So we're going to do what's called create a new branch. And we did this for development, but we're going to do this again. It's git checkout -b, and we're going to give the name of the branch. We're going to do a scoring modification. Okay, it's kind of a long branch there. Okay, but I checked it out, and the reason why I did that is so that if I screw things up, I still have my development branch working just fine. If I don't screw it up, then I'll show you at the end how I bring those changes back into development. And this is something developers do a lot on GitHub, right? Using Git, excuse me. Okay, so there we are. We're on our new branch. We're ready to try this out. Okay, the first thing let's do is let's look at what we have for object score. And then we're going to move this stuff over. On create, let's get rid of this window over here. On create, we assign this variable of score. Now, it's really important that you see the following, that when we assigned it to itself. Okay, so we're going to have to do basically the same thing, but we're going to move it over to the object controller. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and copy this particular block. And now I'm going to go over to my object controller, which should already have a create event. So I go to the create event, and let's take a look at it. Let's go ahead and hide this. And let's just okay, we already have that. I'm just going to right click and paste. So now, okay, so we have the instance timeline, and let's just go ahead and view this a little closer. And we have this assigned variable score. And so if you looked on there, it was, if you just type here and you type out score, you'll see set score, and that's what we did. All right, so let's take a look at it. And we can't really see it well, which is kind of annoying. Let's move this down a little bit. Or let's recenter this. Maybe that's what we need. There we go. So we set score to 0, but we want to double check and make sure it's set to self. Okay, so it is. It's set to self. Great. We set score. Now we're going to go back to the other object, and we're going to bring the draw GUI event over. And on draw GUI, we draw the instance score. And we're going to click down here also for self. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to right click on here and I'm going to copy that. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to my object controller. And there is no draw GUI, so we're going to draw the GUI. GUI. GUI-licious. All right, so that's under draw GUI. Then you're just going to right click and paste and make sure it's set to self. So I click down here, it is set to self. Okay, so now we're drawing score, and let's go back to object score is no longer needed. So I'm just going to delete it. Right click, delete. And click OK. Now, theoretically, this should still work because object controller was already added to the room. Let's just see if we're still getting score. It still says score 0. And we have an error. Okay, so the error is when we go to click it. So this is why you want to test on an ongoing basis. So when you see an error like this, read it. It tells you something. It says variable object duck object score. Okay, and hopefully you were reminded of the fact, and we're just going to click abort, which stops the program running. And as you may recall, we clicked on duck, and it was the left press, which is when we added to the score. So you saw that? I double-clicked on object duck. I double-clicked on left press. And then on set score, it doesn't know where it's setting. So we're going to reselect. So now under set score, we make sure we do object. Okay? So that was object duck. Okay? And then we're going to go to object duck target. So we had to do a lot of cleanup, and I apologize. I sent you down this path. Double-click on left press. Then I'll just hide this for a moment. And then check here. Same thing. Set score. We want to set it for the object controller. So now it should work. Let's just go ahead and test it out. And then if it works, let's see if we can do it. And duck works. And it does. Okay, so everything works for me, but that's because I went into duck target and I made sure on the left press that I chose set score for the object controller. And then now that should all work. So now that works for me. So I'm going to save my changes and we're going to commit these changes. And we're going to give it a good message. Git add dot. That means add all the changes in. And we can see there's multiple files that got changed. And now we're going to do a git commit -m, and we're going to put on here removed object score and moved behavior to object controller. A little bit more text. Okay, if I had had to write anything more, I would have gone into the Vim editor, the dreaded Vim editor. That's right. Anyway, so I committed my changes because you want to commit on an ongoing basis every time you do something meaningful. So at this point, scoring is now working. All we've really done is moved stuff over. But now we're ready to add a font. Okay, let's get a good font for our object controller. So we're going to right click where it says fonts. It's right above timelines. So you right click, choose create font, or you can hold down Alt and type F. So we now have a font. We're going to call this font in game. Font in game. Very boring. All right, so now what we want to do is choose a font. We have a sample of what that font looks like here. It was small before. I didn't like the size of it, and I'm not a huge fan of the Arial font. So what you want to do is click here and take a look at some different fonts. Now notice what I'm doing here. I'm just clicking, and I'm testing out different fonts. Right away, I can tell you now, I want a bigger size font. So we're going to move this font up to about, let's move it all the way to 20. Now I can see the fonts a little bit better, and then cycle through and take a look at different fonts and find one that you like. I kind of like that one, but I might want one slightly more cartoony. Slightly more but not Comic Sans. That's just like way overboard. So one other thing is you have presets. Not all fonts have this, but some will have bold. And then you can play around with the sites. You can make it bold or not sometimes they don't. Okay, so pause the video if you're watching the video from home. If you're in my student, you can mess around with this later. I'm gonna pick Gadoogie, and I'm gonna make it bold, and this is gonna be my font. It is the one I've been looking for all the last 2 minutes. Okay, and so font and game. So you select your font and you're good on there. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to the object controller, okay? So we had the draw GUI, and when we draw the GUI, we're gonna set the font, okay? So we're just gonna go over to the events over here, and I'm gonna hide this little dude. And we're gonna type font. Hey, look at that. Set font. So I drop that in here. Font, not noon. That means no one. I'm gonna choose font and game. So that's gonna change the font right there, the font size and all that good happy stuff. All right, so we got our font set. Let's set the color. So, and you want set draw color is what you want. And you can drop it at the top, bottom, wherever. And let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. And by the way, this is the hexadecimal code for your color. But you can click on here and choose your color through this. Let's play around a couple different colors. Let's try this like aqua blue. And let's test it. And see if our font is working. See if it's the right size. There it is. Actually, it looks a lot more boring right now than it did before, but I'll fix that later. Okay, so that's the font color. You can play around with different colors. Pick one you like. Maybe we'll try the yellow of the ducky. Run it again. All right, and then this would be a good time to commit if you like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that, and I'm gonna commit my changes. Git add dot, git commit dash m, adding font and color. All right, I like the idea of doing quick commits, having a lot of them, and having a good description, keeping them together. Adding font and color, that's a pretty clear thing of what we did. We just focused on that. We're done. We're ready to move on to the next step. All right, we're going to do one more thing before we come back, and we are going to deal with lives. So what we're going to do is for every life we have, we're going to draw a picture of a bullet. Not the hole, but the bullet. Okay, so let's just get back to this object controller over here. On create event. All right, we set the score. We're going to set lives now. Okay, so we're going to go back here. I'm just going to double click events. Nope, it doesn't do it that way. There we go. And now we did score. Let's do lives. Okay, we're going to set lives like we set score. And let's just make this full screen. I'm going to set lives to 8. We are not going to choose relative, okay? And it's because we want to start with 8 lives, period. Okay, so we set our lives. Now, under draw GUI, we're going to represent one bullet for every life we have. So on here, we're going to go back to score. Draw instance score. Is this the right one? Hold on. Of course not. It's lives is what we're talking about. Lives. Draw health bar. Draw instance health. Draw instance lives. And look what it says. Draw an instance's lives with stacked sprites. I'm just going to drop it to the bottom. It doesn't have to be on the bottom, but there we have it. All right, draw instance lives. What's the sprite? Now, if you have the sprite for the bullet, great. I don't. I have to add it in. So I'm going to have to go back in and add that sprite. For that, you right-click on sprites, create sprite from images, and then there it is, ammo. We can draw ammo, and we are going to go ahead and, in this case, I think we're doing everything middle center, so we'll put that in the middle. And that's basically it. We just need to name it sprite underscore ammo.
What are you calling this beyond?
Oops, I just changed the origin again. Middle center. Let's lock it so I don't do that. Now we're going to go back to the object of controller. And on the draw lives as instances, draw instance lives, now we can select sprite ammo. All right, we only needed a sprite. We didn't actually need an object for it because it's draw GUI, right? So we're going to stack it horizontally, and then we're going to put it to the right. So I'm going to put an X of about 200. We'll see if that's right. And I think I figured out about 25 is right. I do not check relative on either. Let's go ahead, save our changes, and run it and see if we can see a bullet for every life we have. Hey, we have it. I think I'm going to want to move it down a little bit. Now, if I click, the bullets don't go away. Of course, I'm looking at the video. We've kind of run out of time, so I'm going to push this to the next video. Basically, what we're going to do is have a every time you click and you hit, well, actually, anytime you click, you're going to lose one of the lives. And then we'll add it where it will only display the number of sprites for how many lives we have. That should actually be working okay. But then we're going to add the idea of when you run out of ammo, when you run out of lives, the game's going to end. We're actually going to go to the next room. And then we'll add in a target that will have ammo that if we click it, we can get more ammo for the game, and that will keep you going. All right, so stay tuned for that video.